Welcome back. Okay, so today we're just going to do a quick video. I'm going to do a series of these to talk about loading, give you some tips for how you can better load across your season and your whole year. So I had a great year. It didn't go smoothly, but I got the result I wanted. I was able to get through a really long day in Sweden. To cap off a very satisfying season. So I wanted to share some lessons. So before we get into the specifics, there's three terms that you're going to hear a lot out there: microcycle, mesocycle, macrocycle. So micro, small; meso kind of sounds medium; macro kind of sounds big. So what these typically, if we're thinking about a calendar, it would be sort of a week, a month, or a couple of seasons. The season maybe it might be 4 to 6 months would be the macro. But I wouldn't get caught up on fixed durations. If you're using dynamic loading, you're going to have to let your body decide how the length of these various cycles that you're going to be running, the micro, the meso, and the macro. And we're going to use my year to help you understand how that might go. And I'm going to give you some important rules of thumb as we go through this series so that you can make informed decisions. Now, the first rule I find is if I'm in a position where I can't go up in terms of load, or I'm feeling like this current level of load, there's no way I'm going to be able to maintain it for a couple of months, that's a clear signal that it's time to unload. No matter what my plans are, no matter how hard it is, if I can't go up, it's time to go down. So what that does is that makes me very cautious with ramping load. And that's a good way to be, because you don't want to find yourself in a position where you're having to give away load at an inconvenient time. And so let's just look at my whole year. This is from Jan 1 all the way to today, in early September. So last year across the winter, I started feeling pretty good in February. And these are some big peaks. And that's my microcycle. So that's a couple big weeks. Looks like 3 big weeks in a row. And all of a sudden, I did too much too soon and I got really tired. And this blue line is my chronic load, and that's about my load over a 6-week period, whereas the pink line is my 1-week load, my acute load. And you'll see I was like, whoops, did too much. It's time for an unload. And what I did was over 14 days, I shed a lot of fatigue. And by doing that, I did a little something every day, didn't do anything hard, and I just let myself freshen up. And then when I came back, I learned my lesson. Instead of trying to push the load, I just kept things pretty moderate for a couple months. And that worked really well for me. Now, within that moderate overall load is quite a bit of run load. And one of the things you're going to find if you're a multi-sport athlete is when you're pushing run load, you're not going to be able to push total load. The run load itself is going to be quite demanding. So everything else you've got going on in your program, you're going to need to dial that down. That's what I did, and that's what I found. And then I did a 5K race in April, and I got a little bit of a niggle, and I was kind of managing it and training through it. But by the time early summer rolled around, that niggle turned itself into a full-blown injury. And once again, if you can't go up, it's time to go down. And I came down in early summer to get myself healthy and to freshen myself up. Now, that was a really inconvenient time to drop load. And by inconvenient, I mean I knew I had an event in early September, and I wanted to get ready for that event, and I knew it was going to be costly to my performance to have to back off. However, if I didn't back off and this injury dragged on for a couple months, then I wasn't even going to be able to attend my event. So I had to bite the bullet, drop load, and get healthy. Now, if you find yourself in that situation, some good news. By dropping load, getting healthy and feeling fresh, I was able to, when I came back, I was able to ramp load quite strongly all the way through the rest of the summer until I started a very short taper for my event. And that's, so these pushing the load, you can see each week is going bigger, bigger, a little bit of a regroup there, bigger, bigger. And the balance, my TSB, training stress balance, that's the yellow line, is negative. So this line here is 0. And when you're ramping load, you're staying negative. We'll get into that in a different video. The key thing for today is the lesson that if you can't go up, it's time to go down. And don't be greedy if you're pushing run load. You got to keep your overall load pretty flat. And the idea of the game is to give yourself consistent load over time. You're going to get a lot more from that than you are from constantly trying to up it. Stay healthy, keep the loading. Okay, so that's part 1 done. I'll be back next week for you.